That's what happens when you're a sexy boy. You get a sexy voice.
Ding dong bang, ding ding dong bang bang.
Boom! Boom! Boom!
Welcome to the All-Star Supercast. I'm Hans from Valkyrie Rock. This is Jay from Jay Horn Illustration Comics for Couples, and this is Joe.
Hi.
Ooh!
Who dat?
Oh sure, I don't get a second title.
Fresh from finding what the hell is going on.
Yeah, they're going to share with the group.
It certainly wasn't a pay increase, I can tell you that for nothing.
Oh.
Wait a minute, you get paid?
No.
So,
I didn't come back.
He held us up for no money.
Yeah.
we lured you back under false pretenses of coke.
Yeah.
Not
Not
even the
Coke
type.
Zero, like a big box.
Yeah, not a big ball of the stuff.
Yeah.
Imagine like Tony Montana.
Yeah.
You just come in like, right, here's your pay, big mountain of cocaine, like,
That's probably why I enjoyed this film so much.
Yeah. That's why I got excited when it started snowing. Cocaine from the sky!
Oh dear. So we did.
My nose is cold.
So
It's not working.
I did lure him back with Akira.
Promises of gold and candy.
Well, we say lured him back with Akira. He didn't know anything about it until I
literally
picked him up earlier.
Yeah, I was literally just minding my own business.
Yeah.
And white van pulled up and you were pushed in and now you're here.
Yeah. I moved aside some of the bodies to make room for you.
I mean, I'm literally not kidding. Jamie has told me literally nothing about this film, not even its title. Before
Wait,
I sat down
I didn't
to
even talk to you before this, Jay. It
That's
was just
true.
like, we doing this weekend? I was like, yeah. He's like, cool. What time? Told him the time. And he was like, cool. And I was like, wow, am I not going to talk to Joe before he arrives?
Did you not even know I was coming?
I knew you were coming, but that was about it. And all I could
We
think
should talk more.
all I could think is, why aren't you using the group chat? It's probably really low down in your list because that's
Probably,
been
yeah.
used for like a year.
Yeah, I totally forgot about it.
Yeah, I mean, this is literally almost a year old as a concept, isn't it?
It's over.
October
The All-Star
2017.
Supercast.
Yeah, October 2017.
Yeah.
Oh, we're getting old.
I've lived in
Do like-
1, 2. I'm on my 4th place that I've lived in since we started doing this.
I'm still the first.
I know. Look at you.
Hence why we're sat here.
Some stability in your life.
Oh.
So we've established Joe knows nothing about Akira. I know next
Even
to
less
nothing
now.
about.
Even less now I've watched it.
So Jamie, grace us with knowledge.
Okay, so
Go on, pronounce it right.
alright, okay. So Akira is a film based on the manga of the same name by the author Katsuhiro Otomo. God, I hope I'm not butchering that name.
You know what? I will say, if you'd heard the first take of that, it was so racist.
Oh yeah. So many chings and so many chongs.
Oh fucking hell! I'm going to edit. You make a joke and then he just goes too far.
Yeah, pushing those boundaries. But it was based on a manga by the author Katsuhiro Otomo, who is also the director of the film. This is his first film. Very first film. And for as far as first attempts go, wow.
It's not bad.
Yeah, I'll say that.
It's not bad at all.
I mean,
Do you think that had anything to do with the fact that he was behind this from the start? He could visually see how we wanted this to play out from
Well,
a long time ago.
How
he
much
is-
of a hit was the manga before the film was made?
it did pretty well. As far as I'm aware, it was pretty popular. It wasn't a shonen manga, so it
Yeah.
wasn't as popular as amongst young boys. It was, I think, like
I love how just by that laugh I can tell you got an image.
yeah, I think that is what shonen means as well, young boy. Yeah, exactly. I think it was more.
Who can believe that? You believe out.
I think it was Seinen manga, which is like for young adults.
Oh, what? Who published it?
No, the genre.
All right.
Because in Japan, I don't know whether you're familiar with this, Joe,
I am
but
not.
in Japan, pretty much
I'm fucking not.
everyone reads manga.
Oh yeah, I'm aware of that.
Pretty much everyone, like adults, mothers, fathers. It's just a normal piece of entertainment, like the television for them.
See, I couldn't imagine that personally because I always assumed manga and anime. I always assumed that was in the realm of Marvel, DC, and there within would have its own kind of audience.
So like Saturday morning cartoons and
All the
comic
comic
strips.
book fans.
Yeah.
This is how I picture their.
As opposed to
fun.
like football
Yeah.
levels
This-
of
yeah.
fandom.
Yeah, it's
there's
a
every
massive,
level of
it's a
acceptance,
massive
yeah.
industry, and there's a manga for every age group, which is incredible. But this was aimed at the young adults, and it did incredibly well. It's totally different in many ways to the anime, and I've got to give props to Otomo because he had to butcher his own work into pieces to fit it into a 2-hour time slot. This is 2,000 pages. Is manga?
So how would you say he, in a fashion, butchered it or
Not
cut
butchered.
it down?
Cut it down. So
Yeah.
the film came out in 1988. The manga wasn't completed until 1990. So he didn't have an ending.
So
He didn't have
it's a
an
good
ending.
job
how
he
Game
did
of
it.
Thrones is played out. Though,
Yeah.
It's
In a
kind of
way.
still running.
Except only if George R. R. Martin directed all the episodes.
Oh God, could you imagine?
Oh, nothing would get done.
Yeah.
Boobs.
At least the on-set food would be good, though.
Okay. Oh.
What there was left of it.
Yeah.
The only release on Betamax. Have you seen the computer he writes on?
No.
It's like it's like an 80s computer that they have the amount of converters they have to go through to get the files from that computer to like a Word document.
When he still uses it.
Oh yeah.
Why?
Because that's what he's used to writing on. Because it started in the 80s in writing it, and basically he's just never stopped. But I'm not sure if that's why it's so slow. But
To
it's
be
one of
fair-
these black screens with green text.
Like a DOS
Holy
sort of
shit.
system.
Yeah, it's not Windows or anything like that. It's proper 80s.
I still genuinely picture like Stephen King behind a typewriter. I don't know why. It's kind of
That's it, isn't it? I think
Yeah.
it's because when you think of authors, you think of that, and when you think of anime people, and you just think of a crazed lunatic drawing pictures all day with no sleep.
so the fact
Welcome
that
to my life.
Yeah. So the fact that he created this and then carried on the manga thereafter. I mean, does that suggest there was more to the story? That
There was, yeah. Many people would call Akira, the film, a companion piece to the manga.
Yeah, it's in the world of and inspired by, but not.
Yeah.
See, I think that's really interesting because I know I like when I take in media, I like it to be like a coherent universe, like the MCU, DCU. Ha, that's a joke.
Or you.
But,
Yeah, or you.
Hey. But it must be quite nice for the people who were into the manga at the time to get this film that didn't spoil the ending for them.
Yeah.
It was set in a world that they enjoyed reading about, but
Yeah.
was not a different story, but a different take on that story.
I will say as well, his artwork is absolutely incredible as well. The detail in every single drawing he does in that manga is beyond belief.
Take your word for that. I
Yeah.
realise you're kind of looking at me approvingly, and I do not have a dicking clue.
So I think me and you look at pictures and we're like, oh, it's pretty cool, but because you actually do that,
Yeah, he's an
that you
illustrator,
have
so
like
he's
another level of
literally-
appreciation
Yeah,
for it.
cradling the balls.
I'll,
The way we can't appreciate it.
I'll break this down. The life of a manga artist is horrific, right?
I've seen the schedule that the
schedule.
Dragon Ball Z guy did, and you get no time off.
You get
like
4
2 hours
4 hours of sleep a night at most, and you're working
because
the rest of the time.
it has to come out every week.
22 pages of comic book art and a story.
It's
every
all
single week.
Do they
meetings
not
and
have a
everything.
staffing? Or...
They have assistants who will do things like
Cook, clean.
do a bit of maybe, but they do like a bit of inking. They'll do like putting some of the shading in place and the textures in the background sometimes.
Okay.
But for the most part, it's just the creator who does it all, and he has to manage creating the artwork, writing the story, and changing artwork and story if the editor for the magazine that he's publishing in doesn't approve.
That kind of sucks in a way. I mean, in a sense,
It's
having
really
that kind of complete creative control must
Yeah.
be absolutely magnificent. But within that kind of short time frame, you can't even imagine.
Well,
It
there's
is
one-
suffering for your art. That's
I'm
what it is.
reading Seraph of the End, and that seems quite weird because it's actually the guy who draws it and the guy who writes it are two different people.
Yeah.
Which,
Like in Death Note.
yeah.
Same
So you've got
example.
the guy writing the manga, but he also writes like the light novels for it that tie in, and then he obviously writes the story and plots it out, and then just gives it to the artist and says, "Put your own spin on it."
Yeah,
but
which can be considered either easier or more difficult for the artist, at least, because in effect the artist has 2 editors.
Yeah.
Which means he's got more voices that.
I don't know why. I know why you'd want to go into it, but it just sounds.
It's industry. It's
just,
part of the industry of Japan.
I mean,
and their work ethic is insane anyway.
I was going to say, you look at their culture and the work ethic, it's like off the scale as it is.
Yeah.
So, but
60-hour weeks are like the norm.
The burnouts must be just huge.
Well, common thing in Japan is people dying from overwork.
Yeah.
Happens quite a lot. I think it's happened to manga artists in the past. Like dying from overwork, not eating, not looking after themselves.
Yeah.
Now they have the sense to be like, right, I'm getting burned out. I'm putting a comic on hiatus for a couple of weeks until I catch up on a bit of sleep. Recover, take a bit more care of myself. Yeah.
It can become, I imagine it could become as much of an obsession as a job. I mean, if you're that sort of involved and that committed, I could easily imagine you kind of getting carried away and almost getting consumed by the beast.
Oh yeah. Easily. And also just living in your own like fantasy world.
Absolutely,
You're living and breathing it to the point of I think when you finish you must feel really hollow.
It's very difficult to look after relationships, I imagine. Like friendships and any like parents, anything.
Well, you have no time, do you?
Yeah.
I think you must eat while you work.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. It just sounds nice.
I think you find that of any sort of profession in which people succeed in. I mean, I read a lot of autobiographies, and the first thing that always comes through once I've closed the book is,
I'm lazy.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, like,
genuinely.
Yeah.
But also like how many like other things have to go to the side. It's relationships have to go. Friendships have to come second. Relationships have to come second, and those people within their lives have to either willingly take a back seat or leave.
Well, you just hope that whatever you're obsessing over is good, because you hope if that's successful, then you can find the rest later.
Yeah, it's like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like sleeping like 4 hours a night, training at like 5 in the morning, and eating all that food and going back and training and not having any real relationships, and putting all of his work into what he wants to be, which was the best in the world.
Just to sleep faster.
Yeah,
I need 8 hours sleep.
Well, like when I was watching, but I can't remember the name, Pumping Iron, and he was just sleeping while he was with his mates.
Yeah,
just sleeping on the grass, just getting little naps. Yeah,
no, you got it.
And we're getting off track here, aren't we?
Yeah.
But yeah, he. So, in 1988, he released his film with this massive studio, which was called the Akira Committee, which was loads of different studios all in one. It was like Bandai, Toho, the Laserdisc Corporation, because it was made specifically for Laserdisc, and what's the other ones? Kodansha, and I can't pronounce half of these. Hakuhodo,
Sumitomo.
Yeah, there's loads of different corporations who all saw this property as something that could be great, and they came in to form the Akira Committee.
I know I had a glance at the background. It was the most expensive anime ever produced at the time.
Yeah.
With, what was it, 9 million budget, which unheard of at that time, I think.
Oh, it was insane. And also, it was a first in animation, the way that they recorded. Most animation, they will film all the scenes, animate all the scenes rather, and then they'll get the voice actors in to speak their lines and to the parts, to the voice flaps. Yeah. This one they recorded. Not that it really made a difference to us because we watched the dubbed version. This one they did all the voice acting first, recorded everything so that it gets some natural acting between.
Yeah.
Between
I think Pixar did that, like about 5 years later, with Toy Story. I'm sure they filmed.
That would have been 7 years later.
I know they filmed the people like doing the voice lines,
Yeah.
and then put that into the
Yeah,
animation.
it's quite common now.
I
Yeah.
love how you know when Toy Story was released.
I know.
I mean,
95
7
was it
years
95?
later.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, was
You
it
got a nerd in me.
Says the guy who just watched an anime film with me.
Was it was it
The
95?
false
it came
pretenses
out?
of chocolate and power.
Was it 95 it came out?
95 Toy Story. So
So
it might have been recorded a year
So
before.
I was assuming it was a year or two before.
Yeah. I mean, actually,
I think I found.
it might not have been because it took them years to animate it.
Yeah.
Anime
So,
Yeah,
Toy Story.
'cause it was the
And
first.
again, we're getting off topic.
Sorry, this is like I'm not going to get invited back.
Yeah.
Segway.
Every time you guys, I've listened to these, and you're always very on point and on topic, and I'm sure that's no.
Well, what we're trying to do is
I'm Joe the wrench thrower.
Yeah, I know.
we were trying to change the format a bit because before we just talked through the plot of the film and then talked about like themes and stuff as we were going through. Whereas now we're going to have more of a conversation about the film with more points to hit as
not
opposed.
so much recapping it.
Yeah. But that we might do that as like a separate thing possibly and have a quick run through.
No,
just-
I like that idea.
But yeah, we're trying something new.
Yeah.
It's a good
I mean,
idea.
we need.
Less editing for me.
We also need to do that in this film because this film is.
Batshit crazy.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's a
for a
2-hour
first
film.
Yeah,
And
which
to
isn't a long film.
to
really.
go through a 2-hour film, scene by scene, when it moves this quick in parts, would be here for 3-4 hours.
Yeah.
And well, I want to go to sleep tonight, so
Yeah. So when I say that he butchered his own comic to make a film, he basically took all of the important bits and that left a lot out. It left a lot of character development out from other parts.
it lost the side stories
Yeah.
and like just character development because it had to move the plot,
Yeah. Like
which is very common. I know I watched The Kingdom of Heaven. They did a director's cut, and it's about half an hour longer, but there's loads of side plot that cut out.
Mm.
And when I watched it, it was a different film because it had all these side stories and character developments cut out because they wanted the film at a certain length. And when you watch the director's original one, you're like, "Oh, okay, it's actually a better film."
a lot of good films that have a director's cut are like that. Others that have a director's cut and aren't good, not quite so much.
Oh.
Spawn.
I was going to
It's
quote.
nasty coffee got there,
I was
Joe.
going to say I was going to quote the other way, like one that did work, as being the Batman vs Superman made more sense with the director's cut.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying it made more sense.
Daredevil movie.
I know that was the other one I was going
I
to say.
like
as
the
well.
Daredevil film.
I don't mind.
I didn't
I
mind.
like the director's cut.
Yeah, I haven't
I
seen
think I've
that.
ever seen that.
I've seen the director's cut was great. The film, when you watch the original film back, not so much. Anyway, Akira.
Sorry.
You are laser focused this time. Normally it's you like it's like off on the side, and
Yeah.
it's just me and Joe just like let's talk about anything but.
Because I'm like, there's a lot of pressure because I'm the only one who
Yeah,
knows
it
a lot
is
about
pretty-
this film.
Today is
true.
the J show.
The J Show. J Boy.
When isn't it? To be honest, because let's face it, I'm just here to say words. You're here because you know a bit more about movie structure and how they're shot, and he's
Again,
here because he knows everything about the content.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, when we talk about film structure and lighting and all the rest, and we have talked about this kind of thing on Dread.
Yeah.
You know, the use of the camera shots of the lighting, and this is again when this movie finished, I turned to you both and I said I'm genuinely worried about talking about this because everything shifts, the cultural style, everything.
It is a whole new world.
Yeah, it's.
A whole new world.
But I think it's
Yeah, I
interesting.
don't know exactly what you're quoting. I think it's Disney.
Yeah, it is.
I think it's interesting because watching this, thinking that it came out in '88, a lot of the shot styles of it that weren't used at the time have seeped into more Western stuff
Yes.
now, and it's quite interesting seeing that how much it actually brought over.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about the voice cast.
Yes.
Because-
Well, first of all, when we're going back to the background as well, I just want to say the animation, right?
Yeah.
Another groundbreaking part of it was that it was 24 frames per second. Now, that doesn't sound a lot in a film context, but when you talk about animation, especially mostly hand-rendered animation like this, you got to bear in mind that's 24 drawings a second.
Yeah.
You know, not
But
just...
I think you can tell because it is so smooth
Oh,
motion.
it's ridiculous.
Motion?
Yeah. The motion.
The motion.
Yes.
It's
beautiful.
Is it human eye can only pick up like 24?
I thought it was 48.
Is it 48?
I'm sure it's fine.
I know I know, like, so I come from more of a video game background. Like,
Because you do get 60 FPS.
You can see the difference between the 30 and the 60.
Yeah.
It gets locked at 30 most often, but everyone likes it at 60 because it's a lot smoother. And you can go up to like 110, 120 on good computers. But it's interesting because you never think of like TV and animation and films of they are at a slower rate. Because I know I went to watch one of the Hobbit films in the high frame rate, and it was a bit weird watching it in a higher. I think it was 36, and it's normally shot at 24.
Yeah.
And it was weird seeing it at a higher frame rate.
I've heard it's a bit mad, like.
It's not. It's odd. It's just you're not used to it.
Yeah, yeah. But this
The amount of work that must have gone into
oh,
doubling that up was definitely shown in the quality of the movie.
yeah. I mean, there was a bit early on where it's just the dogs chasing that guy near the beginning.
Yeah.
And the way they move when one of the dogs like stumbles and straightens itself out and runs, it's like that didn't even need to be in there.
No.
That's just showing off how good the frame rate and animation is. That's all that's doing.
How much of that is though because the creator of this whole franchise was the director? So was he demanding that kind of level of attention through the whole?
Maybe it's possible. I know he did have a lot of creative control. The studio didn't interfere too much, which I think many comic movie studios should probably take note of that.
DC.
Yeah, Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
They should leave the creators to do the creating.
I love the smoke you had there, like, yeah.
Mine was like, I'm not committing to this. I one day want to work for you. Marvel, please hire me. Just to stand there.
Just to bring coffee to Kevin Feige. That's all I want to do.
To stroke Thor's beard. I'll do anything. It's fine.
So, you wanted to get on the voice actors?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't the wrench then. Woohoo!
Woohoo! I was just jumping the gun. No, the reason I want to look at the voice actors because it's quite interesting that this has two separate English dubs as well as the original Japanese.
Yeah, it had the streamlined dub from 1991, and it had the is it 91? 89. Sorry, streamlined dub from 1989, and the Pioneer dub from 2001. I've only fully watched the Pioneer dubs, and I've done that maybe 8 times, maybe 10 times at most.
Yeah.
That I've seen this film. I've never watched the Japanese one, even though I'm trying to get a little bit more into subtitled because it's more natural.
I think this was such a visually huge film that if you were constantly reading the subtitles, they might pull something away from that.
I think maybe for my 9th or 10th time I can do it.
I did it with Batman Ninja after I'd watched it dubbed. I watched it subbed because it is a different story actually in that. But you get something with how it was designed to be, and then someone dubbing over is different.
Well, the way Japanese mannerisms are different, aren't they, than the West? So when they say things, it's sometimes you pick up that it means something else.
Well, it's like,
but you have to match them mouth flaps in the dub, so you have to slightly change the story.
You said mouth flaps and Joe's face just dropped.
I'm meant to be the immature one.
I'm such a fucking child, I'm sorry.
Damn it!
I've got a whiskey called Knob Creek and I didn't stop giggling for weeks.
You need to stop stealing my gimmick.
I'm sorry. I want to be
I'm immature, not you. Now go to your room.
Think about what
I've told you 1,000 times, don't exaggerate.
But yeah, so I've only watched the streamlined dub, and it has some of my absolute favourite anime voice actors in it.
Yeah.
Like, Kaneda is played by Kaneda, my proud and native protagonist.
We all were hearing that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Every second they kept shouting Canada. And Kaza just kept bursting out,
I've seen some clips from the streamlined dub, and it's even worse than that. It sounds like Canada.
Oh, do you mean the other one?
The original dub, yeah. But Kaneda in this one is voiced by Jongi Young Bosch, who his main role that he's well known for now is Ichigo in Bleach, but he was also the second Black Power Ranger as well.
There seems to be. I know we had a quick look through all the actors, and there seems to be very much like Power Rangers seems to link a lot of these together. As does Bleach, Naruto. Like, they obviously did a lot of dub work for... Well, insert name here, Pioneer.
Yeah. And then you've got the character of Tetsuo, who was voiced by Joshua Seth, who is the voice of Tai from Digimon. That's what he's most well known for. And he's got such a distinct voice. Like when I first watched Akira, I hadn't seen Digimon for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Because I have fond memories of getting Akira. And
well, Joe did it with, was it the Colonel?
yeah,
You did it with someone and they played Zed in Power Rangers, and it took you. You were like, I know that voice. Why do I know that voice?
It was one of the revolutionary
it was one of the terrorists.
But
That was funny.
that voice is so iconic. Like I just hear it. I was like, that's Ty.
Yeah.
And then the voice of Kay is Wendy Lee, who was Faye Valentine in
Cowboy Bebop.
and Cowboy Bebop, yeah. So it's some really prolific voice actors. Those are just the main three. It's a huge cast. It's absolutely massive, the amount of voice talent that's in there. But
you can really see as well that I think the cast very much went out, like, did a very, very good job compared to the original English dub. Which I'm not saying they didn't do a good job, it was just for its time.
yeah.
Whereas the comparison's really funny.
Oh, story time. Story time with Jay.
Go on.
Okay.
Why did you pat your knees?
Because I've got some Werther's originals in my pocket, so you need to sit on my knee. Wow, yeah, there we go. Oh, alright. This isn't a video podcast, but
Put you down.
Have this Werther's original and this stick. So my 15th.
There's an editing.
Yeah, my 15th birthday, right, was in the build up to that. I was getting into anime.
Yeah.
I'd been watching Dragon Ball Z. I'd seen Ninja Scroll on a friend's taped VHS off a German channel. Oh, hello.
Just watching you strip in the corner, it's quite weird.
Mr. President.
Sorry.
It is warm. Like I'm gonna join him.
So you have to restart your story there. I apologise.
So it's alright. My 15th birthday, I go to HMV with my cousin who looked about. He's 3 weeks younger than me, but he looked about 18 at the time.
Yeah.
You've met him anyway, you know. And I went to buy Akira because I was like, right, finally, I can get Akira from birthday money. I've heard great things about this movie. I need to go see it. So I went in and he said, "You're old enough, mate." The cashier, and I was like, yeah, it's my birthday today. I was like, "Sorry, bud." And I was like, oh, I was gutted. I went out and our Luke just went, "Leave it to me." 14-year-old, 6'3" or whatever he is, 6'1", with a beard, goes in, gets the DVD for me, comes back and said, "Oh, and as I was leaving, I told him, actually, mate, I'm 14. And I remember my first viewing of this, I was so confused. Like, I literally did not know what was going on.
And the confusion's never stopped to this day.
Oh, no, I get it now, but it was, I'm confused about other things now, like my sexuality.
I was going to make that joke, but I thought...
Yeah, I thought I'd get in there first.
That's what you said.
That's how we became confused.
Toes aren't meant to go up bums.
That's an editing.
I honestly believe Haz is just compiling a psychological profile of
and as I said to...
wait until the outcuts thing that leaks like in 20 years.
Yeah, of course, when you finally edit it.
Marvel comic writer.
Shade.
Marvel comic writer has been hit with all these accusations. Audio files included.
No! He has Madeleine McCann in his cellar. He said it in this podcast.
I apologise for this 20 years ago, and I'm still apologising, but unfortunately I can't draw Guardians of the Galaxy anymore.
Damn you, I was going to make a James Gunn.
Now I'm going to do the sequel to the Suicide Squad comic.
Hey, I'm looking forward to that.
That might be quite
I'm
good.
looking forward to
that might be good. Yeah, so the
Why
first...
did you make it sound like he just like insulted his girlfriend there? Kind of like, no, I'm looking forward to that actually.
I'll have you know. You silly bastard.
We're really... Yeah, Joe is just like the wrench monkey here.
Yeah, I am completely unnecessary.
So, the first time I watched this, I was uber confused because it's just so much information and visual stimulation chucked at you. Um,
I'm just remembering your story that you just said, and when you were like, I old enough when you went, "It's my birthday." I'm just thinking that you didn't say that. What he heard was, "It's my birthday," and then after you've watched it, just sitting there going, "What?
I'm 15 years old. I'm a real boy. and when he said no, I went. Mom!
That's when you went, "Ooh."
Off to my porn.
I grew a full-on fucking Gandalf bee in that moment.
Oh, if I could animate, I'd draw.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my fondness of that. So yeah, where to next?
I want to talk about the music,
Yes.
particularly the music, but
Boom.
it was amazing.
It was
Boom.
nightmarish.
It was. It's
Boom.
I hate it so much sometimes.
Oh, I'm just doing the music.
Are you there? Oh yeah.
Boom.
But yeah, music was incredible.
Yeah, it's not a soundtrack that you can listen to by itself. I don't think. Like, there's plenty of music you can listen to from films that you can listen to by itself.
Mm-hmm.
John Williams music springs to mind straight away. Danny Elfman music.
Yeah.
You could listen to that just in the background. But imagine you're like you're trying to do some work, and in 3 seconds of silence followed by boom.
Or ding dong bang ding ding gong bang bang.
Yeah, it was like the xylophone-esque.
Yeah.
It really set the scene because you knew it was going to go down as soon as it went silent, because it did all the sounds made, because there was nothing competing with them in those scenes. It did make it stand out better.
Yeah.
I thought.
The use of silence in this film as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely just.
But there were moments that I thought that the soundbar had turned itself off.
Yeah.
Because I was like, there was a
That's
moment in the
closest
film where the screen
forward
went
one
black
point
and I
when
was like,
shit
Oh shit! I didn't tell you.
Yeah.
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 But it really does just show you exactly what it wants to show you, makes you hear exactly what it wants to let you hear.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just incredible. Like, there was lots of like a cappella, like chanting almost, in
Yeah.
it, and like layering of that, and that was really incredible. Instead of them using instruments,
Yeah.
which had a big effect on it.
It was a big collective, you said, as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, I looked it up. It was a collective of like hundreds of people, but these aren't musicians, these hundreds of people. They're like doctors, engineers, and stuff like that. Just everyday people who obviously just had a passion for it. And they were the ones that like helped produce the soundtrack, this collective.
I bet they got paid in exposure as well.
It's the favourite way to pay anyone.
Yeah.
What's paid in exposure?
Let me show you.
I was hoping it was an actual term.
No, it is. No,
It
it
is,
is.
yeah.
I was just making a joke.
When people say
Don't, right, neither one of you are then to go, no, it's an actual term, and whip your dick out, right?
no, if
Put
you
it away, Jamie.
if you're an artist or creative or something like that, and you get asked to do something for someone who doesn't want to pay any money, they always say, "Think of the exposure."
I'll put it up and mention your
I'll
name.
put it up. I mention your name. You're getting to get exposure, and it's like it's become something of a meme now.
It's
It's like, oh, exposure dollars, my favourite.
Yeah.
That'll put food on the table.
It's
Yeah.
in the same way.
It's
It's
funny
like,
that
oh,
it's
I've got
the
an artist.
only-
I've got an artist friend.
Yeah.
He'll be able to draw a picture for me for free.
Yeah.
That'll help support him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
It's
is
the only profession. Like, you never see a fucking plumber go, think of the exposure. What, to shit?
Think of the exposure.
He
What?
gets
I stopped your
exposed.
pipe leaking.
That
Yeah.
plumber gets exposed to shit enough.
Yeah, I know. Like, the electrician, like, changes wiring for me, like, for free. Think of the exposure. I'll tell all my friends, what, that I'll do it for now? You fucking knob.
It's just funny.
Worst part is when companies do it.
Yeah.
Big
Yeah.
companies that have money or
Mm-hmm.
big, like self-employed people who you know have a good income will say that kind of shit. and
I've
you're
seen
like,
a few.
you're a piece of
big-
shit, mate.
Big YouTube companies of they constantly say that to like small creators. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, we'll do exposure, and it's like, really? No.
Yeah.
You know better than that.
We see through your lies.
Indeed.
Yeah. Now pay us, so fuck off.
And then they fuck off and we cry.
No,
No, we don't.
I don't anymore. When someone asks me to do a job and they want either, even if they are willing to pay but they're not willing to pay a lot, I'm like, fuck off. Well, not fuck off, because I want them to come back if they wanted to pay me properly.
Yeah, if they did have
But I'm
their
like,
money.
sorry, can't. No.
Well, that's it. You can cut like a Matrix deal, but you're not going to do it for now.
Yeah.
Or pittance. You
That's
still
it,
got to
yeah.
get. You still got to get paid.
Yeah.
Gats to get paid.
Yeah.
Gats to get paid.
I've got to get my crack addiction, man. Or in the case of this film, my capsule addiction.
Capsule
Yes.
addiction.
Yeah.
So, back to the music and audio. There was what was that?
Apparently, my phone, the BBC has contacted my phone.
Oh, God.
There were a couple of things where, okay, give me the name of the guy who, hulks out at the end.
Oh, Tetsuo.
Tetsuo.
Tetsuo!
There were moments when he appeared through the smoke and the ash, and the music did serve in that very cliched way to heighten him. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the bad guy. Tra la la. Here's my music. Tra la la. And it's very effective.
Hey, I like your music, Joe. Can I pay you an exposure?
You can have that shot for free.
Thank you. Oh, that's going to be the opening to the podcast.
I'm the bad guy. Tra la la.
That's the thing. The music for the opening should just be all of us going, boom, boom, boom.
You never know.
Yeah, there we go.
That is the one. You never know.
But yeah, the audio really did help in this film greatly.
Yeah, it was mind blowing. Speaking of when you were talking about Tetsuo going, I am the villain, la da 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 da. You had a few questions about who was the hero in this story as well.
Massively. I mean, what I asked was how you viewed. I mean, predominantly, I identified a main character, but I couldn't, even for 1988 and the 90s, where over here establishing a good guy was very important. And to me, I saw him as a main character. This Canada guy.
Oh, Canada. Yeah.
I saw him as a main character. However, I did not see him as a character I identified with, sympathised with, rooted for.
Tetsuo.
In a lot of ways, that's kind of what I feel would generally be associated with a hero. And again, I love a lot of things which move away from that. The Punishers, the anti-heroes, whatever it is. But what I found interesting was I turned to both of you and I went, how do you see him as a hero?
I want to take this one.
Okay.
Right. So the reason I call him a hero is it's about scope. He, on a day-to-day level, you would not call a hero. He's in a bike gang, into violence, just casually bimbling along.
Bit of a thug,
but
yeah.
We're not on about the day-to-day calling him a hero. It's that in that moment.
Or the context of the story.
Yeah, in the context, he was standing up to the bad guy and doing quite heroic deeds.
He was much
saving
less powerful
woman.
than the villain as well.
So I'd say in that aspect he was the hero. I'm not saying you got to sympathise with him, but he wasn't an anti-hero. And I guess in the traditional sense, he wasn't a hero.
Yeah.
He was just the protagonist.
Yeah.
Well, you said he's the main character.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say you're not meant to. He's just a bit of a goofball, and we've all known someone a bit like that in our lives. But when it came to it,
he's got some good qualities though as well. When you think about the character of Kaneda, he's an obvious leader. I mean, he leads the bike gang. He's the first to take charge. He's headstrong, and he obviously cares a lot about. I think at the end they tried
to build a little bit of sympathy in the last few scenes for him actually.
Yeah.
In those flashbacks. And I think that's what it was almost trying to do, because it was like, hey, I've just got here as well.
He hates bullies as well. That's
yeah,
another bit.
And it was trying
I
to
really
build...
could have done with that scene being earlier in the film. I know that sounds picky, but there are certain
That's
scenes
why I was saying it felt really late.
Before.
It felt really late to do
that.
that.
For me would have built him up in a way.
But this comes into what you were saying when you said, "Oh, this is a film that merits rewatching a few times."
Yeah,
because you
rewards
still
multiple viewings. Yeah,
and I think that's very much as if we watched it again, we might feel differently about him.
Yeah,
but
you definitely notice new things.
With me and Joe just watching it once, I got the thing of I said he was the hero because he did heroic deeds, as opposed to actually liking him as a character.
I will say that I would call both Tetsuo and Kaneda the two leads.
Yes.
Rather than it being a hero-villain thing. Because you follow Tetsuo a lot on his journey, and he makes the most transformation throughout the entire story.
Yeah.
and also I'd say he's the most sympathetic. You know, if in the bike gang, he's a runt of the litter.
Yeah.
You know, he's there's a big section in it when he said, "Yeah, I've been beaten before, but I won't always be on the receiving end." You know, he's sick of being pushed around.
It's
and
all circumstance,
that leads to
isn't
his
it?
transformation. Yeah.
And I think again with the ending with the flashbacks, where as I said, it kind of gives some moral authority to Canada. Tetsuo also got a bit of sympathy because you saw he was downtrodden and that, but also when it was transformed to the big beast, he was kind of saying, "I can feel the pain," almost saying, "Yeah, it's not me."
Yeah.
And I thought that was an interesting spin suddenly because that almost was trying to get you to feel sorry for him.
Yeah.
Which was up to that point, you're kind of like, oh, he's just an arrogant fool, and then you start to think about it.
I mean, I felt sorry for him the entire way through the film.
I
But
did
maybe
up to
that is because I've watched it so many times.
That's the difference. Joe?
Yeah, no, I mean, the thing you pointed out rather well is the fact that a hero is not necessary. You know,
in many ways,
in the story, it's not. I mean,
I don't think I think probably I know when I used it, I probably used it wrong. I said it said he was the hero. But
Yeah.
it's like
Well,
he did
just in the
heroic.
way-
He did
yeah.
heroic things,
yeah.
which
you just now call him a hero is the kind of the stereotype would infer.
And also, he's kind of like that sort of working class hero in a way, isn't he?
yeah,
He's not.
it's a circumstantial hero
Yeah,
as opposed to a superhero.
That's it, the circumstantial hero.
I got one of them off my rabbi when I was a kid.
Well, yeah.
What? Moving on.
I'd
What's
say
your
in many
thing?
ways, the character of Kay is probably the real hero of the piece when you think about it as a character, because she's the one who is actually she's in a revolutionary group. She's wanting change from this obviously corrupt government, which is another part of the story which we'll get into later. And she's incredibly brave, and she doesn't seem to have any of the flaws that maybe Canada and Tetsuo do.
Well, there's the moment when she kills the cop when they're
Yeah.
chasing her, and she's shocked by it.
Yeah,
And that was quite interesting because again, you get that.
that was a brutal kill as well.
It was, but it was like a necessary thing in the
Yeah,
film.
yeah.
And you see like the shock. She's really stunned by
Yeah.
what she's just done, and then Canada's like, "Right, come on, you'll be fine."
Even though she did just stick that pig.
So how would you view
Fucking hell.
how would you view the female characters, like by and large?
Well, she was very strong, Kay, I'd say. As for Kaori, she was more there to be sort of an anchor point, I think, for Tetsuo.
I think
She was there to humanise him a little bit
I felt
more.
it suffered with the.
I mean,
She's a suffering girlfriend, believe me. but-
massively.
I think I'm gonna move it on to tropes a little bit because I felt it was a bit. It has the same thing all anime has. Of it didn't have that many strong female leads.
Yeah.
In the sense that you could have been that it was almost like a full love interest, almost friendship.
Yeah,
That it could have been anyone. And it had no real impact on.
she got fucked up as well.
Yeah.
She's a totally different character in the manga, though.
See, that's what I was. I don't. 'Cause
Maybe
obviously
not
we haven't done
not for the
that.
better, though.
Oh, right.
Right, okay, so here's the thing in the manga. It's around about that point where Tetsuo frees Akira, I'll put in quotation marks, is it's not just the bits of brain and stuff. It actually is a powerful young boy in cryo sleep.
Right.
And when he releases him, basically Tetsuo becomes like the Darth Vader to Akira's Palpatine.
Yeah.
You know, he becomes his top lieutenant, and they start the Empire of Japan, where they try to take over from there.
Right.
And Tetsuo gets a harem of women given to him.
Took me a second to figure out what the word I said that as harem.
Harem,
But it's the same word.
And with basically sex slaves, he gets given to him. And one of them, his favourite one, is Kaori, and she's the one who feels most for him, and she's the one that tries to reach him in his most troubled times. Because another theme is that was alluded to in the film, but not so much, and is massively prevalent in the manga, is that Tetsuo is a drug addict. He needs the capsules to keep him like relatively sane,
Right.
because
See, the film didn't really show that at all.
no capsule in the film, capsules are just a street drug.
Right.
But the doctor does mention at one point, we'll put when Tetsuo goes into first gets taken on, is like, we'll give him these, I don't know, level 5 capsules.
Level 7.
Level 7 capsules. So they're on stronger doses than what the street drug is.
I think it just didn't have time to really put that into the film.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see like a 3-hour version of it, like to see how much more story they would have put in.
Yeah.
Because I mean, now
I'd love a Netflix series, like a Netflix 10-part anime adaptation. I think that'd be amazing.
I don't trust Netflix to handle that kind of thing anymore.
After
fucking Death Note.
No, that's why I said.
Are you that mentally scarred you forgot it?
That's why I said an anime adaptation.
Fair enough.
And not a movie, a 10-episode.
Were they the ones that adapted Bleach, or did they just buy Bleach to show?
They just bought Bleach to show.
I'm glad, because if they'd have done both of them like that, then
yeah.
I'm amazed they did so well with Marvel when they had it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the last bit on the female side that I'd say. But you want to move on to the tropes, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm just interested because I did comment while we were watching it that when you watch older films like this, it's hard to... You watch stuff and you go, oh, it's just like, it's in every film, that's just a trope. And I just wonder how much of like those tropes that are in this, it actually created.
Right, okay.
Because, I know there's a lot in that culture of those tropes, but some of them, I've seen in films since, but I can't necessarily I saw in films that were before that.
Which ones were you thinking which you saw and thought, oh, that's a trope?
I did make a comment. There were moments where almost the Dragon Ball esque, where pauses in certain points, and the overly long pauses, or the way it looked and the way it handled the military, for example. And I know the military side, Japan has a weird relationship with its military, but it's hard to narrow it down to one. Is the problem?
Yeah, I mean,
it's one of those. I noticed them when I did it, but I didn't write them down.
I will say the tropes that it took before anything is that, for one thing, it opens up with a massive explosion. Japan, the bomb.
Yeah,
that's a massive trope with them. You go back to Godzilla. You know, in the 40s and 50s, that was born through the fear of the bomb. You know, and what it did to them, how it changed the entire Japanese culture.
It did,
completely, yeah. And that continued for a long time. Nuclear power was a big source of it, and explosions and everything like that. So this film really took that into a different context.
I know it very much opened up with, we've already had a Third World War by this point, to justify almost an authoritarian nature.
Yeah.
I know the film tried to, as a theme, tackle authoritarianism versus diplomacy.
Yeah.
And democracy, because you had the Colonel at one point actually commenting, they're just a bunch of corrupt politicians
and capitalists.
And basically saying, it's not it's better under the iron rule of a strong leader than all these people who have nothing to gain from it but money for themselves.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting. Also, as a trope, some of the character designs. So, for example, the politician who was funding the resistance,
and Nezu,
he had a real weasel-esque look with the buck tooth and drawn face. And there was a few times like that, where the colonel was obviously a very big, strong man, strong jawline.
Yeah.
And you had
looks a bit like Zangief.
You had the guy who was talking to, some of the other people, like the accountant looked overly nerdy. John James Jonathan, shouting his head off with his small little Hitler mustache.
Yeah.
And just a lot of the designs did feel quite trope-like. And I'm not sure if that is just drawn from the manga, because that's how they draw them in the manga, and that was an established thing at the time.
Yeah.
Because that's still now on the new manga, I've noticed they very much do that.
Yeah, I mean,
old men all have the same kind of drawn look.
Yeah.
Because they must be wise.
There are some things that are just in manga and anime that are universal, and that's the way they're going to stay. The big eyes, you know. I mean, the eye sizes are much smaller in this than they would be in, say, a shoujo. That's a young female anime or manga, but for a male manga, it was actually there was some realistic body proportions in it, you know.
I noticed all through it, actually, that Tetsuo's eye seemed really small compared to his head.
Yeah, well, that's because it's sharp eyes, sharp eyebrows, sharp face. And with Kaneda, he has more of a softer face, you know, more rounded. That's another way you can always tell that of the protagonist and the antagonist in animation.
I
Especially.
noticed when he was in the police station, they drew him very schoolboy-esque with the neat hair and like the real.
Yeah.
And then you have his gang behind him who were drawn like they were normally in the film.
Yeah.
Apart from him, and I was like, that's quite funny actually.
Yeah. Combed his hair down.
He'd combed his hair down with the big cheesy grin and just yes sir. Oh, no, yes sir, that's right. And it was funny, but it's always interesting how anime does have to draw so much from the manga.
Yeah.
Because that's its source material.
Essentially,
it's the same kind of art.
It's a storyboard for many scenes.
Yeah.
You know?
I imagine it's a type of mechanism that allows you to understand what's going on and how you could easily identify. As you said, there's so many actors, voice actors in this, so many characters in this, that you must have to rely a certain amount on these kind of mechanisms. As you said, the character over there kind of looked weaselly. This one,
the religious guys is the other one that as well. Like
massively,
when you have those like the religious guys,
the religious lady.
Yeah.
It's a female. Yeah.
Well,
it's a female.
Voiced by a man.
Voiced by a man. And
like a dude.
And in the manga, it's a much bigger character because she's also one of the psychics.
Right.
She's an experiment from much earlier.
So, just talking about psychics, we'll talk about. You called it the supernatural effects, or that kind of.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for me, obviously, not having seen anything like this before, and I mean literally nothing, no manga, no anime, no background, and everyone's like, why are you fucking talking about it then? Because, I've got nothing but blank
You watched
slate.
Death Note, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, good point, yeah.
You watched Death Note, and that was your introduction to it, almost.
Yeah, I mean, that's been like a year ago now, but ever since, obviously, I've not re-immersed myself in it at all. Definitely not something I'm familiar with, but my question to you, to both of you, was just how the East and West approach these kind of, these types of themes, like the supernatural or the romantic elements. Or
I mean, romantic elements of West would
Yeah.
have a totally different approach to it. Because this was based on a manga for young boys, it's not going to approach romance so much. It's going to hint
feel
at
very high schooly kind of. Hey, what are you doing? My name's.
Well, they are
Canadian.
high schoolers as well. Canadian.
My name's Canadian. Want to go out with me? Round in the boots.
Hey guy, you want to go out, babe? I'll take you on a date, huh?
All of a sudden his head starts flapping.
How about some
I'm not your girlfriend, guy.
I'm not your romantic interest, Betty.
So I think in it's kind of like in Death Note in a way. Because the way that in the Netflix horrific thing that we watched approach that was to make them like proper romantically linked, getting off all the time and stuff like that. Whereas the same, I don't think we watched when he got to that character in the anime, but that same female character in the anime,
it's obsessive.
She's obsessive. She's chasing him, but he doesn't really do anything with her.
Yeah, he's interested in what he's doing with the Death Note.
Yeah.
And I've noticed
they don't do romance in Japan.
It doesn't translate well across.
And if they do, it involves tentacles.
It seemed very, very tacked on, almost secondary to any.
I love how you can just breeze over what he just said. It's like
you just have to.
You just blanked it out.
They've known me long enough.
That's what to say. I'm like,
you didn't even smirk. You just were like, I'm just going to continue and pretend that didn't happen.
Captain High Ground.
Sorry.
Captain Faggot.
Anyway.
I'm moving on.
You can tell I'm not used to this kind of
level of abuse.
Yeah, well, no.
Gonna say you should be.
Not the fashion of. That's all. Fuck.
So yeah,
cock swaggling dick fart.
How do you swoggle a cock?
I don't know what swaggling means. Hang on.
Don't Google swaggling.
That could be anything.
Okay, I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm not going to do that.
I'm not going to do that unless it's on incognito mode.
I was going to say, yeah, dead.
What is cock swaggling?
His phone gets a virus.
Siri, what is cock swaggling? Siri, what is cock swaggling?
Cock swagging.
I'm sorry, you have a 3-day ban.
It's continuing.
So you haven't.
Did you accidentally summon me?
Is that what it is? Is that what it is?
No, Siri. What is swaggling?
Here is what I found.
Is that
Swaddling is an age-old practice of wrapping infants in
Oh, yeah, I
blankets
know
or
that.
similar cloths.
Yeah, that's not swaggling. I don't think swaggling's a word.
I don't think so.
Oh, well done, you've invented something.
Hooray!
Hey.
Born of the frustration that I can't come up with a decent comeback.
Where we go? Oh, we're on about the supernatural element.
Well, the East vs West.
Yeah,
Absolutely. The first thing that jumped out at me was the creepy little kid, child. First of all, as an animation, was unbelievably creepy. All of them.
I wonder if it's a Japan thing because it
The
reminded
Grudge.
me. It reminded me of the Nameks in Dragon Ball. It only just came to me
Yeah,
there.
like
Like
Dende.
that drawn feature and
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. And also when you've got like the Grudge, the kid in the Grudge.
Yeah.
They have a thing. I mean, thing for creepy children. You know,
I thought you were going to say they have a thing for children, and I was
It's-
I was getting ready with the edit button.
a thing
Yeah.
for creepy children, and I suppose we do in the West as well because we've got like the Omen and stuff. Kids are just creepy. I think
Yeah.
we can all agree
Kids
with
can
that.
be creepy, and they have. I think it's easier to be freaked out by a kid because that perceived innocence.
Yeah.
But as well as
And that
anything
old
else,
man face on them as
that
well.
was what I was going to say. It's
Yeah.
like the juxtaposition. You've got like a child's voice, a child's stature, with like a wrinkly, almost like diseased-looking face. Like
Yeah.
that you'd associate with somebody.
I thought they looked a bit like a husk, like quite a dried husk.
Yeah.
Like the moisture had just been sucked out of them.
Yeah, and both of them, both of those images put together, really kind of freaked me out.
And then at the end where Tetsuo says, "Put me on medicine to dry me out, make me look old like those kids."
Yeah.
You see that bit?
No.
That's
Yeah.
when the Colonel approaches them in the Olympic Stadium.
Oh, that bit, yeah. So
Yeah.
where he goes, yeah, no way.
So that's pretty much how it happened to them. They have to be on this medication to control their powers. And
They're on some pretty good Prozac.
they're on some good shit, man. That sort of keeps them the way they are. It is creepy, I'll give you that. And the first few times I watched it, it did sort of freak me out a little bit.
No.
But it's also really, really different in a way. Like, it's not something you'd expect. And I think that's pretty cool. Yeah. There's something I forgot to touch on when it comes to tropes and themes as well.
What?
Which might surprise you. Tetsuo is an allegory for the economy of Japan.
How so?
Okay. So, well, the post-war economy of Japan.
Right.
Put it
What?
that way. So when it comes to Japan after the war, they're the littlest dog in the fight. They're absolutely downtrodden. You said they weren't allowed an army. They just
Yeah, it was called a defence force.
yeah. So they couldn't go overseas. They just had to something to sort of look after themselves.
Yeah.
That's all. And they also they owed all this money as well. They had to sort of pay damages in effect, didn't they, to the Western countries that they were at war with.
Repatriations, basically.
Yeah, there was they were at an all-time low in terms of how all the people felt in Japan, basically.
It's why their money is like 1,000 yen.
For whatever.
Or 10,000 yen is like a pound because of the inflation they suffered.
Yeah, that's
They
essentially
just
it.
printed more money for a bit, which doesn't work. Germany had it before World War II. Venezuela has it now.
Yeah,
It's just, you try to print more money, it becomes worthless.
yeah. But because of the war, since the war, sorry, they've had the biggest boom in the economy from 1945 up to when like the film was made, or before that, for the 80s.
Yeah.
They had a massive boom. They became the most technologically advanced. You know, their economy started to get better. That people could own their own home while having a job. Everything got really good for them. And the worry of the creator, from what I've heard, is that he didn't want Japan to end up like these other nations that were so powerful and so authoritarian and imperialist. that was his worry, and that's what Tetsuo is.
Which is interesting.
He
because
becomes
Japan's
so
been one
powerful.
of the longest recessions in the world since.
Yeah,
Like, it was on like a 20-odd year recession.
Yeah.
And I think they only just broke it.
yeah. But Tetsuo starts out
Don't quote me on
as the
that.
run of the litter at the start of the film. He's broken down. He can't get a break. You know, he's the littlest dog in the fight, and he gains power so rapidly. When the doctor said his power's increasing so quickly, that is what the author is talking about when he speaks about the Japanese economy.
That is interesting.
So that's exactly what Tetsuo is, which is really smart, I think.
Yeah.
I think the best comics have that kind of parallel to something.
Yeah.
'Cause-
yeah.
I mean, most things, if it can draw on something like that, it's a powerful way of getting kids and teenagers to understand a bigger issue.
Yeah.
I mean, 2000 AD's done it for years.
Yeah.
With that kind of dealing with
Satirical in a way,
yeah,
isn't
dealing
it?
with adult
Right.
issues, but not dumbing them down, just changing the context.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Yeah, it's kind of going.
It's not treating people as idiots. It's going, oh, so you might not understand the financial element, but if we phrase it like this, you'll understand basically what's happening.
The
It can
fear,
also be an indirect way for a creator to vent their concerns, their viewpoints.
Oh, very much.
Their
Very much.
I mean, one of his viewpoints, it seems from the film, is the fear of what rapid expansion and power grabbing can do to a country or a nation. In that Neo Tokyo is just full of like riots. There's riots every day.
Yeah.
You've got all these different factions. You've got terrorism on happening, all revolutionary
And all the
terrorism.
politicians are just fighting for their own corner and corrupt as hell.
Yeah,
And it's a sad look at power structure.
yeah, and it rings true to this day as well.
I found particularly
Yeah.
the Colonel's journey interesting because you start off thinking that
He's a bad guy.
yeah,
That's got to be the bad guy. Yeah.
by the end of it, I was looking at he's not a necessarily a bad guy. He's just a guy trying to do his job and keep everyone safe.
Yeah.
And you can question the way he does it, but at never any
He's a
point is he
practical
after.
one.
He's never at any point after personal power in this film.
Yeah.
He's only after furthering the state.
Well, that's another theme from it is, and something that I believe the author was trying to express is that people who want power shouldn't have it.
Yeah.
Tetsuo shouldn't have power because from the beginning he wanted to be the guy who rode Kaneda's bike. You know,
Yeah.
he wanted.
What was the weasel politician?
Nezu? He
You
was.
saw that when the terrorist leader Ryu came back.
Yeah.
And was kind of like, I'm sorry I fell, and he was like, you shouldn't be here, and he's running away with money,
Yeah.
he's trying to pop his capsules, and it was incredible to watch, because it's like,
His death was one of the most brutal ones as well. He just had a heart attack, not like the rest of them who get their faces blown off and stuff. But that heart attack was,
because he knows he's
some
trapped.
it was drawn out.
yeah,
And
and the mouth full of pills
Fuck,
just
yeah.
overflowing. It's like,
Face down, arse up.
yeah,
dark.
yeah, yeah. It was, yeah. So, I think there was a lot of good messaging in this film.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and the fact that the one standing tall at the end, Kaneda, he just wanted that.
Well,
Like,
let's face it,
he
basically,
just wanted an easy life, you know.
he wanted to go on a date
He wanted to go on a
with the
date.
female lead.
Yeah, he
we-
He wanted to go a date and he wanted to ride bikes. That's all he wanted to do.
That's it.
What's wrong with that? Yeah, there you go.
It was.
The simple man wins. in the
There was
end.
some, by the way, there was some really funny side notes in this. Just like little one-liners.
As you
Yeah.
said, it was a lot of dark humour peppered in it. Like
Oh, it
your
really
bike's
was.
still on fire and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When he gets knocked out, he's like, "Oh, you're heavy."
Yeah.
That was brilliant. Just the little whining as the scene fades.
And that's the first time I've heard that. And all the times I've watched it, I didn't notice until that
And
time.
there seemed to be loads of little bits like that.
Yeah.
And I thought that
At least tell me your name, you cold bitch.
because I felt the
I don't
film.
remember that.
That again, you'll have to watch it
Yeah.
again. It's one of those things. It's after he gets Kay out of.
Oh yeah, it's when
the
she's
question-
walking away because she's seen Ryan.
Oh.
It's like they're walking outside and
yeah.
she starts running off when he's like kind of chases after her a little bit to ask her what from
Oh, of course it is. Yeah,
'Cause she comes back with a really good one-liner
after
on
he
that as
springs
well.
her from that place.
Yeah.
Which one was the one she says?
Oh.
You're just a skirt chaser or something like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
She just calls him out for being what he is.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, it's a woman's sensitivity that does it for me.
Oh dear.
such a bloke.
One thing I do just
We make me sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, men. It's fucking patriarchy.
one thing I do want to touch on in this is just how there wasn't really any hope in the film. It was a hopeless,
Yeah.
like the world had gone to hell.
Mm.
You had riots and everything like that, and even when you boiled it down to the smaller levels, they were non-committal with the female friends. They were just distracted all the time because they had literally nothing. The bar they went to was a dive. It was something falling apart.
It was incredibly hopeless. You're right. Yeah.
And even when you look at the story of like the protagonist and the antagonist, there wasn't hope there. Like one of them was just spiraling down with his like corruption and power, and the other one's just there trying to deal with it. And there was no hope. It was never like, we're going to make the world better.
Yeah.
He said, he's my friend, I'll kill him.
Yeah. Yeah.
He never was like, I'll save him. He used the word kill instead.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, yeah, this is a world without any hope. And the film did really well. I think it needed the dark comedy. This is where it comes in. It needed that dark comedy so it didn't feel like a depressive film.
Yeah.
It kept you up a bit with the one-liners because that's what people do.
They're very necessary, aren't
Well,
they?
people do it in life. When
Yeah.
you think of like death and stuff, you've got either really morbid people and you don't really want to be around them, or you've got the people who make light of those situations because it is such a like dark thought.
What comes, I mean, some of the best comedy I always find comes from the most downtrodden characters.
Oh yeah,
in the world.
look at stuff that was written in like World War One in trenches, and like creativity was inspired out of it because they didn't want to give up.
I gotta go as force. It's me. Ah!
I found one that some of the funniest bits were so when the kids attacked Tetsuo when he was in his bed.
Yeah.
And they turn the giant monsters and attack the big teddy bear and the rabbit.
Yeah,
and
I meant to wonder, was that them creating that hallucination?
No,
on
that was
him,
them
or
actually attacking him.
Oh right.
Physically attacking him because they knew how dangerous
But he didn't
was.
understand what was going on.
Yeah.
So we were as confused as he was.
And there's the bit where he stands on the glass and it breaks and he gets blood in his feet and everything.
Yeah.
And one of the kids as he's trying to escape just goes, "Weirdo!" and I remember you just went, "Pot kettle, mate." And
He's never sounded
I
more
felt like-
northern.
and then later on, when he makes his way through all the soldiers, that bit where he just fucking blasts all these guys against the wall, and there's an arm falling from the oh Jesus, yeah. When he makes his way to the baby room, to confront them, and one of them just goes, "Hey you're a cretin, die!" And just throws him at the wall. It's amazing. It's I don't know what it was. It was just because it was like something a kid would say. A kid who just learnt a big word.
Yeah.
You're a
It was,
cretin.
do you remember when you first learned to swear and that was like the only word you wanted to use because you thought it was cool?
You're a
It
big
was a bit like that.
doo-doo head.
What was it in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back? Fuck,
Fuck,
motherfuck, motherfuck,
motherfuck,
motherfuck, noise.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, noise. Drinking beers.
We don't know the whole thing.
It's been years since I've seen that. They're
I know.
making a new one.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
I
it's
know,
filming
but
currently, I believe.
In...
I will not get distracted.
No.
Let's talk about the
Come
impact.
on, guys. Look over here. Those dogs are barking.
Let's talk about the impact this film had on not just film, but everything, really. I mean, it was a bit incredible how it seems to like seep into everything.
Yeah, it's
it
huge.
seems widely regarded as one of the best animated films to come out, but also like just one of the best films overall.
Here's the thing: if that film came out today, it would still look beautiful by modern standards.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In this list of influences here and how it impacted future productions, one of them happens to mention the television series Stranger Things. Now, how would you suppose this...
80s nostalgia is a massive thing in Stranger Things. And this is happening in the 80s, late 80s, but even watching it, you can see like the 80s influence at the time. But amazingly for the 80s, it doesn't have any synth.
And also, Stranger Things, psychic powers.
Yeah.
You know, psychic experiments.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a kid that's doing it. So that'd be the main.
This is why I asked the questions. That's why I asked
the questions.
I
What are you
learned.
scared of? The Germans.
9.
But like some of these, beyond belief, like Ghost in the Shell's an obvious one.
Yeah.
That'll probably one day in the future get its own episode because it's a huge.
I mean,
Yeah.
it'll get at least 2 because I mean we've got some of the anime to watch, but we've also got the live action movie
Yeah.
to watch at some point.
Yeah.
Hopefully sooner than the gap we had between.
Yeah. We'll try and make. Sorry, guys. We'll try and.
Happy Easter.
Yeah. Tarantino loves the film.
Yeah.
I know that he cited that a few times, and it's one of the reasons why he included the anime segment in Kill Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see the influence in Dark City. That was
Yeah.
a good film. And I think I almost draws on the hopelessness of it.
Yeah.
As well as the dystopia.
Inception. I can see that. One thing I could probably see is Hans Zimmer, who did Chris Nolan's films for the music for them. He uses a lot of similar kind of sounds, like the boom, brown. Yeah.
Do you remember
Yeah.
about 4 years ago, everything used like the really bassy klaxon, like the boom,
Yeah.
boom, and it was in every fucking trailer
Yeah.
for about a year straight, and it was the most annoying fucking sound by the end of it.
What's the worst trailer trope though? That or trailers that start out with "In a world."
I like the inner world.
You
that's
never
charming.
see in a world anymore, do you?
Yeah,
now it's
I miss in a
Here we go.
in a world where bomb doesn't exist.
I want you to
One
do,
man.
I want you to do in a world that doesn't exist for Inception. Go.
in a world that doesn't exist because it's a dream. Done.
One man.
One man spins his top. Does it wobble? Does it not? We'll all be talking about it 20 years later.
Okay. In a world, Toy Story. Go.
In a world where toys come to life when you turn around, one toy will meet another toy and tell him that he's a toy, and he won't believe it.
I just like a darker version of that.
Yeah.
I was gonna use the premise of Toy Story, but just insinuate that you like fucked a teddy and it knows.
In a world where butt plugs have feelings.
God.
Well, that's the question, isn't it? Toy Story, inanimate objects come to life. It's technically a toy.
Yeah.
It'd be like the douche in Sausage Party. We're gonna get right up there.
Imagine, right, if like you know how in Toy Story, Buzz Lightyear thinks that he's a real the real Buzz Lightyear.
Space range.
Yeah.
He
Imagine.
doesn't move around when people are there.
Yeah. Imagine if Dildo thought it was a real dick.
Where are you going with that?
Well, that's all I'm saying.
Genuinely.
You know, imagine
interesting.
thought it was a real dick,
It's not something I've ever.
and it was like thought it was meant to be on someone, and thought it was just a severed dick.
Decapitated.
Why am I still hard? There should be no blood in me. Ah!
This is like Andy's Mom's Toys edition.
Yeah.
Toy Story 4.
Where are
It's
my
like
balls,
the grown-up
Mrs.
version at the
Andy's
end of Lego
mom?
movie.
So what's in there? Like butt plugs. Like a whole. Each one's got a face.
He wakes up next to the butt plug and just goes, "Oh, you smell like shit."
Pulling them out one at a time. Hello, 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 hello.
Hello.
You're a weird guy.
You said that.
One thing that I do want to point out on Impact,
In a
just
world.
to bring it back, and it links to the actual last podcast we did of Todd McFarlane citing this as an influence on the HBO cartoon of Spawn, which once I read that, I was like, yeah, it actually makes sense.
Yeah, a lot of sense.
Like-
The violence is a big giveaway
Yeah.
on it. And well,
But
not so much the
It's interesting as
city, but-
well that I quite a few times through it when I was watching, I was thinking, oh, this looks a bit like The Matrix, like with the way it was drawn, or like the way something would blow up, or some of the violence, or the way they'd move. It did feel quite Matrixy in ways.
the way
but-
Tetsuo would stop things.
The way he stopped the bullet, particularly being
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the bullet tiny, but it was interesting because the Matrix seemed to pull a lot of, like in the real world version of the Matrix, it seemed to pull a lot of threads from that, like with the way the society worked, not necessarily like the city itself, but the way that how corrupt it was, and it was just interesting.
Yeah. I mean, the Matrix massively influenced. I mean, it says here that Akira also influenced the elements of the Star Wars franchise, mainly the prequel trilogy and the Clone Wars TV series.
I wonder if that's to do with maybe
The way the Force works in those films.
the midichlorians.
Yeah.
I was actually going to say that maybe it was to do with the way, as we were talking about earlier, like heroes aren't necessarily heroes; it's that they do heroic deeds.
Perhaps.
And it just seemed did play with that a little
But
bit.
also an influence can be like a minimal thing as well, can't it? That you could consider an influence.
Well, it could just be the
Like-
thought process.
I like the way the bike looked, so I made a vehicle that looked similar to the bike.
It was that bike was in Ready Player One.
Yeah. It the bike's iconic.
It is.
Yeah, it's a massive. It's more iconic than the characters, probably.
Now, I want to say that one of the impacts, is that it got the Olympics in Tokyo in
Yes!
2020. And
Yes!
Now, I'm not saying,
That's because of that,
but I think that
it's very coincidental, isn't it?
it's brilliant.
Frighteningly coincidental.
Yeah. You know, the mascot is for the Olympics in 2020 as well.
Mario.
Goku.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's weird.
He's a mascot. That's from
Dragon Ball Z.
yeah, from that franchise.
That's the only thing I know about that.
Yeah.
Or Dragon Ball. Except from Dragon Ball.
Yeah, from Dragon Ball. Yeah.
Don't stare at me. Dragon Ball Z is like just one of the versions of Dragon Ball.
Yeah, it's just the second
It's
chapter.
the Dragon Ball franchise.
Yeah.
Couldn't have given me it, could you?
Nah,
Just
nah,
had to take it away.
nah.
Look, just because you're back doesn't mean I'm going to go easy on you.
Yeah. Just because he came
Why did
crawling
I was going to
back.
say that sounded like such an abusive relationship, didn't it?
Keep chatting and you're going to get these hands.
Aye, quite.
I see it won a few awards as well. I was at
It was
least
put up for a few.
nominated.
But I think it was very much, if you think at the time, there were no real awards, particularly in the West anyway, for animation. It took many years for that.
Well, let's talk about that. The Western impact that it had, because it was always going to be big in Japan. But when it
Well, it introduced a whole hemisphere to anime.
yeah, I mean when it came over here, anime was pretty much nothing. No one even said the word anime.
No, didn't know really about it.
No, internet wasn't even really a thing
But,
when it came out.
I mean, it's took years, but the amount of people who will look at anime and just say it's a cartoon,
Yeah,
it took years for people to move on from saying
that's
it's just
its
a
own
cartoon.
thing.
Yeah. But, I mean, something has to be the icebreaker.
Yeah.
And, I mean, hell of an icebreaker.
Yeah.
Hell of an icebreaker.
I mean, I was saying to someone the other day that I miss the period in like the early noughties and the late 90s when anime was like said it's been hushed tones, and the only way to get a hold of it was to either get a VHS from some like corner shop.
Yeah, where it's been dodgily recorded late night from Toonami.
Yeah, or like someone at school got it off their older brother, and they're like, oh, you gotta check out this cool thing. It's like a cartoon but for grown-ups.
I remember Dragon Ball Z coming onto the scene and how like big that felt, because that was like almost like the second wave. But I can remember, and I know Joe, you touched on it with, you said, oh, it feels like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in a way.
Yeah,
But
I mean that's the only thing
I very
had to
much got a
compare to.
feel of those 90s cartoons, like those 90s Saturday morning cartoons seemed to very much take a lot of that Eastern influence with the drawing style of the colour palette, just the way they move.
And as I said before, that's because a lot of it either had their intros animated by Japanese studios, or in some cases, like in the real Ghostbusters, the whole show was animated by a Japanese studio.
Was there a change from like the 80s ones were there to sell merchandise? Voltron, Transformers, Thundercats, He-Man, they were franchises to sell toys to kids. And after this, did this almost change the perception of cartoons from, instead of trying to just sell merchandise, you could tell a story? Because, I mean, we said it's 7 years until Toy Story came out, which is probably the next biggest animated thing.
Yeah. Oh, well, Lion King came out in 94.
Yeah, it's Disney, though. Disney were going from like the 40s with like
Yeah.
Snow White and stuff. So you always had those Disney family friendly releases, but Toy Story seemed like the next big push after the anime.
Yeah, I mean, I think Akira really stepped everything up in terms of quality. I mean, I actually looked up what Disney was doing at the time Akira came out, and their big film at the time, well, it wasn't even a big film, that was the dark era of Disney, essentially. Their film at the time was...
DC, so dark.
I know. It was The Black Cauldron,
Alright, yeah.
and when you look at the animation...
That really fell short as
Yeah,
well.
that's the way I mean the dark
Yeah.
era of Disney. The animation does not hold a candle to Akira. Not in any way, shape, or form. I think it pushed every animation studio to be like, right, we've got to make something as good as this.
I think maybe people looked at maybe what the Japanese scene was doing and went, oh, if this starts coming over, we're out of a job.
Yeah, got to start.
Right, so that's why I say like the 90s cartoons were dramatically different to those 80s cartoons in feel as well. Like it wasn't just, oh, we're going to defeat the bad of the day, a bit like Power Rangers was. It was much more
long form.
Yeah, we're going to tell a story, and as opposed to just try and sell you something.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big impact. I mean, I think it after watching it very much deserves the plaudits it got.
And just in general, I don't think if you got Akira over here, Akira didn't do well in the theatres over here. I'll just say that. It did very well on VHS release.
Does that define it as a cult classic then, as opposed to
yes,
classic?
It's definitely
anything that gets picked up after its theatrical release is generally regarded as a cult.
It's definitely a cult classic. Yeah,
I can see why.
Yeah,
because it's one of those. I know I knew the name of it before, but I'd never seen it. But I knew the pop culture references to it and stuff.
But also, it broke down the walls for that second wave of anime. So like Gundam Wing, like Dragon Ball Z, Cowboy Bebop, Outlaw Star, all these big. I mean, Cowboy Bebop and Outlaw Star, especially because they were the more adult-oriented ones.
I'd say then you got the third wave, which was a bit more like One Piece.
Bleach, Naruto, yeah. And now we're in like the sort of the streaming phase where.
Well, I think now
you got Crunchyroll, you got Funimation.
Yeah, I was going to say we're in that globalization of it now, where it comes out in Japan and within a day you've got it online subbed.
Yeah,
and
it's a multicultural phenomenon now. It's not just something for Japanese people. You know,
I say Japanese people. I mean Japan, like the Japanese market.
Yeah,
as opposed to just you have to be Japanese to watch it.
Yeah. Right. You can't watch this.
Now you're watching what you say.
You have no Bushido spirit.
What do you mean now I'm watching what I say? I haven't edited it that much.
I was referring to you.
I never watch what I say. What you know?
Yeah, he listens to what he says.
Yeah, and then I go,
that's a great idea.
I'm hilarious. And handsome. But they'll never know on the podcast. That's what you get! That's what you get, podcast listeners!
Sweet, sweet candy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think let's give it a rating out of 5, Joe.
I mean, I love this film, and it's taken me so long to love it. I'll certainly say it is flawed, you know, in that it's very hard to follow. About the 40-minute mark, it's sort of, about 50-minute mark. You know when both Kate and Kaneda are in the prison, and they have that big long discussion. I don't think that's a great scene. I think it's just a lot of exposition that's thrown at you. I'll give it 4.5. It's still one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen.
Joe?
0.5. For me, I just could not get into this film at all.
Was it too weird for you?
It just seemed to lack, because I have such a ongoing diet of American films, British TV,
Western culture.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for me, I think in order for me to sit down and enjoy something, there just has to be certain elements in it that just weren't there for me. So
maybe it's easy to ask what you did like about it.
I suppose what I enjoyed about it and what sort of kept me on the 0.5 scale was the themes that ran through it, and those are the types of themes that you could identify, like the totalitarian kind of future. I suppose that's what I liked about it. When movies play with the what if.
You mean you want a totalitarian future?
No.
You sick bastard. I'm getting anti-fan here right now. Sort you out.
So my question to ask you would be, would you re-watch it to see if you got more out of the film?
No, absolutely not. And it's nothing against, again, how, as Jamie said, it is visually stunning. It is, but it's just not my kind of thing.
It was a one-shot for you. You've seen it. You can talk now. If someone brought it up, you could talk about it.
Equally, I don't think it has anything to do with where it hails from as much as... Because I've seen things that I would never watch again that were produced in the West. I just think it was just down my own personal tastes, and there wasn't anything that sort of pulled me in as a viewer, so...
That's fair enough. I give it a 4. You can tell it's a seminal film. Like, it was a trailblazer, but like anything that trailblazers, character development was lacking, but animation style was up there. It was the rule of cool, really.
Yeah.
That ruled it. But it definitely, and I said, I'm looking at it now with 30 years of films and anime and culture since.
Yeah.
Looking back,
you're not looking at it with fresh eyes where this had never been seen before.
If I'd never seen it before, I'd have probably been wowed.
Shocking film in the 80s.
But I'm almost 30 myself. I've had my whole life to consume media, and then to go back to something that came out when I was born. It's that's why it's interesting watching the older films. I think I had it with Spawn a bit as well. It's a product of its time.
Yeah.
Very much so. But it didn't stop me enjoying it. I enjoyed the medium of it. Like I said, I enjoyed the visual style. That's a lot of it for me. But where it is lacking, it is really lacking. Like
that's why I wanted to do this film, because I was saying to you in the car that I knew all three of us would get something different out of it, and our opinions would be shaped differently from it. I actually knew you might be more on the... I thought you'd give it like a 2.5 more than anything, but yeah.
I think it's a film that has to click with you or it doesn't. But I've seen so much since, and particularly like when you look at the list of stuff it influenced or had an influence on, I've seen all of that. So when I go back to the original, I've seen other people's take on the same kind of ideas.
Yeah.
And I've seen them first.
Yeah.
Are you trying to say this is kind of like being shocked by something
it's like
that came afterwards, and then seeing the original, where it came from, where the surprise originally came from, and not being as surprised?
I think I was talking about just before we started recording of when you see tropes in older movies, you've got to ask yourself, were audiences wowed at the time?
Yeah. Was this a trope when this came out?
Or did that create it and everything parodies it afterwards? And this really suffers with that. Of the moments in the film where you do ask yourself, I've kind of seen this before in other films.
But those films came after. So.
Those films came after. They not necessarily did it better, but I'd been exposed to it already. Did that affect... I probably did affect my viewing of it.
Yeah.
But I still think it was a good film for what it was.
Yeah.
Which is why I'd give it such a high score.
Were you expecting so much violence and gore in it?
To tell you the truth, on occasion, and again, I think this is down to what you said, there were things that have come after that I think if we had seen this, or if this had come out in the 80s and we'd been around then to see it, even if this I think it would have been far more shocking. And I think for what it was at the time,
because there were bits you went, oh fuck that.
Yeah, there was, and that's even by today's standards. Which, I mean, to imagine what this must have been like to come out at that time, it's much in the same way, I suppose, The Exorcist worked for people, because it was in the, when America
I think horror movies particularly suffer with this.
Yes.
The same
definitely.
element of once something does something original, Alien, big example of that. Once something's done something original, you get all the parodies and the copies, and then sometimes do it better. You get in video games all the time. For the longest time, like first-person shooters were called Doom clones because Doom was the big game, and they all impersonated it, and then it became its own thing. This very much has that of it was the anime that brought it to the West, and you can see how it opened the gates, but it took other things to get us to fall in love with it.
And I always enjoy what I was trying to get across before, when you were asking me what I enjoyed about it, was the hypotheticals. And again, I like how you were pointing out how this movie was a reflection of a particular time, a particular period.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that part.
Based on what you've said, I actually would say you'd probably enjoy the manga then, because that will have the character development and the other plot threads, and that's the things that I'd probably enjoy, because that's what I felt was lacking. So I didn't mind the story. The story was fine.
Yeah.
But I think with more.
Yeah, you want more of the lore, I think.
Yeah, it's a fascinating world that I'd love to explore a bit more.
I think that's what's quite good about the film, is that it makes you go, well, I want a little bit more. I want a little bit more story in it.
It's like a taster.
Yeah, it's like we said, it's a companion piece.
The first
isn't
one's free.
Yes.
The first one's £7.99 in HMV. But it's
and then you want the obscure stuff. I have to go online for that.
Hans is looking over his phone, going, "Fuck, am I paying that?"
We have to ship that over. Well, it is available to read for free online.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I did read the first chapter, and it is quite different. And I want to get a bit more into it as well. Read some more of that, because interesting stuff. Yeah.
If nothing else, it's been a very good conversation piece. Like, I'd challenge anyone to watch that and just come out going, "Oh shit, and everyone's here again, I don't want to talk about it."
Yeah.
Like, it's something that I could see, and like, if we watch other animes, though you say you don't like it, you might refer to it, because...
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So...
But that's what I mean, when it comes to sort of building up a frame of reference. I mean, I kind of went, "No, I've never seen this kind of stuff before," and you said, "Well, actually, you have done." Like a year ago, you said that.
Yeah, you saw Death Note, which does have some similarities to it. Like it was that we were talking about. I think it's all about exposure.
Yeah.
Seeing after you've watched a few things, particularly anime, you start learning what you like and what you don't like. It's like with music. Like if you say, "Oh, I like rock music," but there's such a wide variety, you start narrowing your taste down more and
it's
more.
kind of, when it comes to music, it's like coming in and being used to listening to really well produced, awesome music. Like being able to listen to like Trivium.
Yeah.
Trivium's new album, so listen to that and it's really well produced.
And then go listen to their original demo.
Yeah, or listen to what was inspired by it. So listen to the very first Iron Maiden album, which wasn't very well produced. And if you're not a fan of that, or you think, well, it's been done better because everything's advanced so much, I think that's part of it. Something that was groundbreaking is no longer groundbreaking because it's 30 years later.
I think that's a good point to end. I think that's a very succinct point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've been Haz from Valkyrie Rock. You can find me on YouTube at that address, at Valkyrie Rock. So, I'll go for Jerks. You've got a fucking... yours is like a mini novel in itself, where you are.
'Twas the best of times. 'Twas the worst of times.
Particularly when he got banned for 3 days.
Yeah, I don't know who's going to include. I got banned off Facebook for anyone listening for 3 days because
we don't need to go into why. Yeah, just know
because I'm a shit poster. That's why.
Edgelord.
I'm a shit posting edgelord who cuts himself probably.
Shaving.
Yes, yeah.
Shaving that puckered asshole of his.
I just want to get more spokes in it.
So what are your companies?
Yeah, so you can find me at Horner Illustration on Instagram, Horner Illustration on the Facey B, Horner on Twitter, and also Horner on YouTube. I've got a few more videos. You can also find me at commentsforcouples.com, and I've got sort of my other personal website out as well. Which is jhornerillustration.artworkfolio.com.
If you want stuff drawn,
yeah,
not for exposure, but
no, I don't do exposure dollars. I'm
he's
afraid.
the guy to get in touch with.
HSBC don't take it, so
other banks are available.
Yeah.
They can all take your money for now.
Yeah. And Joseph, where can we find you?
In a box down the street.
Yeah, in the pub.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I don't have interesting tag-ons or anything.
You just are
just me.
Can we not find you in the Amazon rainforest trying to find out what the hell's going on anymore?
You know what? I feel sorry for you. I'm going to do a plug for you. You have a YouTube channel which has some music videos on. which I found the other day. So which is
Just
called
found them the other
which is
day.
called Joe Berry. So there you go.
And there's some banging songs on there. Some banging tunes.
Hanging tunes.
Banging tunes.
Which must be, at least 5 years old now. Holy shit.
And with that, see you later.
Bye!
Bye bye.